Welcome to the WP Builds podcast, bringing you the latest news from the WordPress community. Now, welcome your hosts, David Wormsley and Nathan Wrigley. Hello there and welcome to the WP Builds podcast. Once again, this is now episode 85, entitled Create a Turnkey Website Business with WordPress. Matthew Rodela did. It was released on Thursday, the 19th of July, 2018. My name is Nathan Wrigley from pictureandword.co.uk, a small web development agency based in the north of England, and I'll be joined in a little while for our top and tail discussion and ending fact by David Wormsley from davidwormsley.com. This week, the discussion before the interview is entitled Website Caching, Is It Worth It? And our very little ending fact is entitled 52% of website visitors want to see about us information. Riveting stuff, no doubt. Okay, as always, please go to the wpbuilds.com website where you can click on the buttons underneath the podcast player. One notable button is the iTunes button, and if you wouldn't mind leaving us a 5-star review, we'd be enormously grateful. Allegedly, this has an enormous impact upon the popularity of podcasts if they get lots of 5-star ratings, and very kind if you did that. Also, if you go to wpbuilds.com/subscribe, you can subscribe to many of the things that we put out. We're pretty good at only delivering, messages to you when it's new updates, with the very occasional message about something else that we're doing. You can subscribe to us on Slack or on YouTube. We put all these podcast episodes out on as YouTube videos, or perhaps you would like to find us on Messenger or something like that. Anyway, there you go. The other one to mention is wpbuilds.com/deals, where you can get 20% off any toolset license, 25% off main WP, 20% off either Blog Vault or Malcare, and 80% off a plugin called Block.Party for the new up-and-coming Gutenberg plugin. Okie dokie. I would also like to say that our breezy competition is now over and our winners have been posted in the Facebook group. So if you want to go over to our Facebook group, which is wpbuilds.com/Facebook, you can find out who the winners were, and hopefully you know whether it's you or not by now. Okay, today we have Matthew Rodela on. He's talking to us about using WPMU, or shall we call it multi-site, to run a turnkey website business. Really genuinely nice, honest bloke from America who's kind of created a bit of a turnkey automated process for getting new clients into a fairly straightforward platform of his. Seems to be doing very, very well, and he's got a Facebook group and a community growing up around his experience. So certainly worth listening to. But for now, thank you for listening once again, and I will hand us over for the discussion.
And today's discussion is called Website Caching. Is it worth it? So I'm asking this question really because I'm changing my caching plugin, and I've had a few issues recently with client site layouts being messed up. And Nathan, you're one of the few people I know who's not really bothered with caching as well. So
I think it largely comes about because I'm a bit ignorant of this whole area, and I'm kind of reluctant to go down the route of jumping in on one thing and then discovering that there's the next shiny object around the corner, and I should get in with that one instead, and then having real problems uninstalling plugins that have put things in the htaccess file or whatever it is that they're claiming to do, and suddenly unpicking problems on lots and lots of client sites that I didn't really need. So yeah, I've not really got into it in a large way, but you have.
Yeah, I used to spend a lot of time on speed issues, and then I thought I'd solved it because I bought the first, I think, commercial plugin, which was WP Rocket, which is still a favorite for everyone. And then I switched that, and I didn't, before in the early days of WordPress, I was just mentioning this to you, it seemed to be only 3 plugins, and the main battle out there seemed to be between Super Cache, which was actually, automatic, run that with the original author of the plugin, and it used to be against W3 total cache. But now we've got all these paid options like Comet Cache, and we've got WP Rocket, and so things have changed. And and things have. I just think the whole world's changed. Caching used to not be a problem at all for me. I used to build my sites with Genesis. I would put my one CSS file in there. Clients couldn't touch it. They could only go into the WordPress editor and change things there or change widgets. They didn't do much. Now we've got page builders that have their own caching going on as well with their own CSS files and JavaScript. I think the whole thing's getting a bit more vulnerable.
Do you use the CSS capabilities in Beaver Builder, your page builder? Do you actually put the CSS into the page builder itself, or do you open up an IDE and drop it all in there once you know what it is?
Increasingly, I'm not touching CSS at all. I mean, the page builder's doing it for me, but I'm still, in my main style sheet, that is where I tend to be adding anything.
Yeah,
in my theme. But it's adding so much more CSS, isn't it?
What problems have you encountered with page builders and caching plugins? What's the kind of the gotchas that people would be looking out for?
Yeah, well, we know, isn't it? It's one of the most common thing. It seems to be, things are not laid out properly, or they're not showing after they've made a change. So, I mean, most of the time I'm not suffering, because when I'm building a site, it's off. There's no caching going on, so I'm just building it, no issue. But of course, I used to have them. I used to use things like Cloudflare, which have their own caching. And then, of course, now, and this didn't used to be around before, most of the servers that I had were sort of low price VPSs, or they were shared hosting, and they didn't have that server side caching. They didn't have Memcache, and they didn't have Varnish. And these are things now which also interfere with the page builders.
I've encountered this problem quite a lot of times where, for example, you'll save something and the state, the arrangement of the components of the page looks like it was previously, even though you've moved things around. Yeah. And I found that clearing browser caches is very helpful for that. You just clear. And often what I'll do is I'll have something like Firefox. My browser of choice is Chrome. But I've got a whole load of extensions in there, and I think Chrome does quite a good job of kind of holding on to things and caching things itself. And so I go into Firefox, and usually just booting up Firefox, which I've cleared every time I shut Firefox down, it clears absolutely everything. Yeah. So I start it up, and typically it looks like how I'm expecting. And I'm reluctant in Chrome to go and clear everything because it'll just log me out of Gmail and things like that.
Yes.
Which is a bit annoying.
Do you not use incognito? Does that not work?
Yeah, it would in effect. Well, actually, no, it doesn't work. Sometimes it really doesn't. So I'm wondering if it's a plugin or a Chrome extension which is holding on to some things. I've got so many, I couldn't possibly list them all out, and I wonder if there's an element of that. But certainly it's no trouble to me to have an extra browser launched at the same time, and so that works 100% of the time. But it completely messes everything up, doesn't it? Do you have clients coming back to you reporting problems with things not looking how they're expecting, and it's caching in some way that's causing it?
Yeah, I mean, that's really what set me wanting to do this topic, is because of one last week, and they were kind of upset that it was just a simple caching thing, and it's my fault for not training them. They go into their site a lot, and it could have been them that save that went wrong with theirs, and they didn't know, because they didn't know to go and look at it in another browser. But actually, I do think, to be honest, it's not always the extra issue is the more advanced caching that's going on in browsers like Chrome are causing me problems. I get people saying the site's not looking good, and it's just their browser.
Yeah, I had an exact similar thing the other day. It was entirely the cache of the client's browser, because I looked at it in Firefox with nothing, and they were complete chalk and cheese. One looked exactly how it should have done in Firefox, the correct version, and it was actually quite hard to explain to the client that everything's okay, because it wasn't, and I got the impression that they thought I was being slightly deceitful.
Yes.
And I really wasn't. It really was looking perfectly okay, but it didn't on their end.
I
And I
know.
didn't really know how to overcome that argument. I just said, look, you're going to have to trust me. Maybe go home and try it on your home computer, because I didn't want to walk them through clearing the caches in Chrome, because I didn't know if that was going to log them out of a whole variety of things that they require, and they're not very technical anyway. So
Yeah, well, a few times just to back it up, because if it's totally screwed up the site as they see it, they often send me a screenshot. Then I'll just show them it in tools, Pingdom tools, so because they see a small screenshot of how another server's seen it, so they believe me then.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's a good point. That's a really good
exactly
idea.
The same. Yeah, I feel exactly the same. Like they don't believe me. I'm just sort of fobbing them off,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's made me think about whether it's. I mean, I've heard a few debates, but it seems like there's two debates going on. There's some people that are absolutely crazy at the moment about getting the best speed. I mean, Google's won the argument, haven't they? As soon as they said that we're putting that in as a ranking factor, everybody got serious about speed. And you can see that there are new plugins like, what's the big one, the big favorite that's out there, Swift Performance.
Yes, being spoken about a lot, yeah.
Yeah, which are doing absolutely everything you could possibly imagine that could be done in one plugin to solve speed. But, it's kind of overwhelming options again, for most people.
With these, because I'm not really a devotee of these plugins and I don't use them very much, do they have options which can break things? You switch it off or rather switch it on, and suddenly the site will misbehave because of maybe the server structure you've got? Or are they kind of click on, have a look, and then just switch it off again and everything will be fine? Or are there gotchas with these things that can break things on a permanent way?
I don't know. I think most of them are fairly safe. I think when you deactivate most of them, I think they clear up anything that they've put in the htaccess file and clean themselves up. So I think that's fine. I mean, a lot of the issues that people will have will be functional ones when they try and minify CSS or JavaScript. JavaScript particularly can start to, and you might not necessarily know because particularly if you're trying to, forgot what the word is. There's a technical word, concatenate.
Concatenate, yeah, that was just that's it. Say,
yeah, it's JavaScript. Then you think it's perfect on your Windows machine or something, and then you go on Android and it's not working, or an iMac or something.
Yeah, and so you can switch that off. You can, you don't minify the JavaScript, you don't compress it. You just switch that off again, and everything's back where it should be. Then, of course, I presume it leads to. I mean, do you give your clients the option to go in and fiddle with the caching settings?
Yeah, so what I'm going to do, in fact, that's my job today, is to make a video now, because now I've changed my plugin that I'm going to use. I'm going to do a video for them all so they can decide, because it's so simple, plugin Breeze that I'm going to change to.
So Breeze is a plugin on the repo?
Yeah, it's a free one by Cloudways, and it works very well with Nginx servers and obviously their own.
Yep.
It's got some stuff in it that's not needed for everybody. It's got because they offer you varnish, it's got a way of purging that cache as well.
Okay.
And I don't have that on some of my sites, which are just on DigitalOcean. So it's a little bit unnecessary, the stuff that's in there, but it's free. Hey, and it works really well.
Ah, great.
Yeah, and simple. So I'm going to carry on going with this. I suppose the conclusion is, do we need it? Still, I think I do, because it saves me resources. So anybody who's kind of paying for, it's going to cost me more money, isn't it, if I don't put it on, because it means I'll probably be able to have less sites on a server if I take the full caching off.
I've got the reason really that I haven't fiddled with this too much is because, as we know, I have a server of my own, and I've got that configured to sort of take a lot of this stuff away. But I'm probably at some point going to phase out my ownership of a server and move over to some cloud platform like DigitalOcean. And at that point, maybe it will be more useful for me to look into these. And so having some good suggestions like Breeze is really helpful. It's a good place for me to start. And as you say, it's completely free. There's loads and loads of products, though, in the market, selling annual licenses. Is there anything in your experience that those plugins offer that's superior to some of the free offerings? Have you noticed anything when you thought, oh, that is actually very good?
It's really interesting. Well, when I moved to WP Rocket, I was not inclined to do that. The idea of paying for something that I'd had free and was happy with, which was, the automatic one I was using, Super Cash. But, they lived up to their advertising at the time, which was, you try it out, and if it's not faster, we'll give you your money back. And it was, and that was it. For years, I was with them.
That was all they needed to say.
Yeah, exactly. It worked. I tested it. It was fine. It was one-click solution. And I know why it's still loved. Things have changed with it. So I've changed, and I've realized that this plugin and I think that's one of the key issues, isn't it? Getting the right plugin for your servo.
Yeah, the right setup. Absolutely. Yeah.
So I can now move to a free one that's simple, and I can hand it over to clients a little bit more, because WP Rocket was sold as a very cheap one-click kind of option, and it still works like that, but it's still got a lot more options than I would necessarily want clients to be exposed to.
Yeah, I am impressed that you let your clients fiddle with the caching plugin. Presumably, though, with the setup that you've got, you've gone on way and clicked every single permutation of everything and checked whether it actually breaks anything or not.
Yeah, they can't really do. Well, they could do, I suppose. They could click on the JavaScript, which I avoid, but I don't think it causes a problem. But I think most will be sensible with it, and if they break it, then that's fine. It's theirs to break, and they'll know why they've done it.
Yeah, that's a good. I like your laissez-faire approach there. That's very, very cool. It's theirs to break. Yeah.
Yeah, and they'll know that it's them who's done it. So I don't think that's it. And if not, I am monitoring what's going on.
And they can untick that box safely, and everything will return to normal. So that's good.
Yeah. So. Yeah, no, it's just I think that the debate really was just whether it gets in the way of something, in this age of page builders where there are those more moving parts and things can go awry, whether we should just be thinking of scrapping it altogether or going the other way where some people are, which is like nailing absolutely everything down. So I'm guessing the people who Swift performance appeals to are the people who don't want their clients in the back, and then it probably is outperforming everybody.
Yeah, I guess you've just got to have some system of clearing those caches and educating them that once they've saved something, it would be a good idea to go into the settings for the cache and clearing it. I don't know if any of these plugins that you've mentioned have some sort of, I know that WP Rocket has something in the top bar of the WP admin, so you can just click that wherever you are on the website, which is quite handy. Is that the same for things like Breeze as well?
Yeah, exactly. It's in the top bar. So WP Rocket's got some advantage. It's paid, you can go in individual pages and clear the cache on that. Yeah. So you are paying for something with it. I think it provides a lot of easy functionality that other plugins don't necessarily have.
I don't know that there's a great deal of benefit in clearing the pages one at a time, though, is there? Because, presumably, once it's been loaded once, it's cached. So, if your site's getting even modest audience numbers, you should be getting a cache fairly quickly.
Yeah, and another interesting thing. This is becoming true for all page builders, and that is that you can kind of have replacement header footers or other global parts that are dynamic throughout your site.
Yes.
So a single page clear is no longer kind of going to help if somebody's decided they're going to modify their footer.
Yes, good point. Yeah, good point. Well, interesting topic, David. Not that I know anything about it, so I'm glad that you've come along and educated me a bit. That's great.
I think I just revealed how little I know.
Well, I think isn't that the point? There's very few of us that really know what these things are doing. We kind of work on the basis that we install this thing, press buttons, and hopefully the speed is increased. But I would imagine that a large proportion of the people that install them don't really understand, me included, any of the stuff that's going on in the background. So it might be quite interesting if anybody does listen to this and they have absolute knowledge of how these things work and what they do and what we should avoid. Stick some comments in the episode on the website or in the Facebook group. Most welcome. Right, are we going to knock that on the head?
Indeed.
Okay, we'll go to the interview. Hello and welcome. Thanks for staying with us thus far. to the interview part of the podcast. Today, all the way from Washington, D.C., well, the Washington, D.C. area, is Matthew Rodela. Hello, Matthew.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
You are very, very welcome. Now, we got Matthew on today because he's got an interesting take on creating websites. Obviously, most of the people listening to this podcast are in some way, shape or form connected to WordPress and probably trying to make a living out of making a website here and making a website there. And Matthew is doing something that I once thought I would try and never quite got around to. He's got a few websites. Probably the most significant one to mention is at www.turnkeywebsitesblueprint.com, all as one word, no spaces. And he's got the idea of using multi-site to kind of automate the creation of client sites. Do you want to just tell us how you got into this game? Why did you go from being a sort of jobbing WordPress person into automating everything?
Right. I think it's kind of a struggle we've all had as website creators, is that there's a few kind of problems we run into. One is that you're always chasing that next project because the project is really the moneymaker, and but it's a very involved thing, right? You've got to do the kind of the pre-research with the customer. You've got to put together the wireframe, do the design, then develop the site. There's lots of steps. It takes a while, and it costs a lot of money for the customer. So a lot of times you'll get pushback on price, and they'll be trying to wiggle you down on price, because a lot of folks starting businesses these days, they see the commercials now, because there's commercials for these things when there weren't before, for
really
Squarespace and WordPress.com and all of these free or budget website platforms. And they're like, well, I can go and get a website for $5. Why am I spending thousands of dollars with you? And so all of those things kind of add up to be major headaches and frustrations for us website creators. So I was thinking, how could I better, not necessarily compete, but better kind of model my offerings to those kind of subscription, build out the website yourself. If you want to not spend so much, then you're gonna have to do more work, but I still want to give them the tools that they would need to do that. And luckily I had a niche that I started out in. I started out as an IT consultant before I was building websites. And I was in that world for a while, and so I built up a lot of contacts, and I know those people very well. And so those ended up being the niche that I served once I started building websites. And a lot of those guys, especially if they're starting out, they're very budget conscious. They don't need a whiz-bang website that does e-commerce or does a lot of crazy animations or looks like a fashion designer's website or whatever. So they just need something very simple. They just need something that gives them the tools that they need. And so all of those things kind of came together and made me realize that I think I could put together a solution that would help those people and kind of fill the gap in between Squarespace and building $1,000 website.
Yeah. Obviously WordPress is entirely capable of doing all this stuff. Once you've set the website up, very often you'll just leave it in the hands of the client anyway. But right. What you were trying to do, I suppose, is cut out the cost and the effort required to get to the point where the client takes over the website and reduce that to as automated and as quick and painless as possible. Now, my understanding is that you've been deploying WordPress multi-site to do this. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, I love multi-site because it's kind of built for this, right? It's built to have this to generate lots and lots of websites but you manage them all from one interface, and they all can look the same or have similar themes, and so it was kind of a no-brainer for me to go that route.
Yeah, it's something I don't think we've literally ever mentioned on this podcast, is the capability that WordPress has to generate a multi-site. Now, it's basically baked into WordPress. All you've got to do is go and add one line of code, I believe. I can't remember how you do it, but you add one line somewhere which kind of declares, I want this to be multi-site, and you're off. And from there, you can have as many sub-sites as you like based upon this one, like, how to describe it, like the super user website, if you like. What is the term for that? that website? That
So there's the primary site, and then you as the administrator are the super admin.
That's it, super admin. I couldn't.
And I just like that name, right?
Yeah.
It makes you feel like
Yeah.
a superhero, like
Yeah.
I'm a super admin.
And so then you get a whole bunch of options appearing in the WP admin, which differentiate the site. So this one is the super admin one, and here's, if you like, here's a drop down list of all the other little sites that I've created. Now you could do all this manually, but obviously the principle here was to get it as automated as possible and reduce the need for you to be involved. How did you do that? Did you look around for some plugins, or did you write some custom code? What happened?
Yeah. So first of all, yeah, the whole automation piece was something that was really important to me, because I was still building websites for people, and I wanted to be able to build this, as a side thing, and I wasn't able to focus, 100% of my time on it. And I knew just from being in the world of WordPress and hearing about people who like create plugins or SaaS applications that it's all about scale, and it's all about reducing the amount of hands-on that you have with the solution that you're providing. So I wanted to make at least the entire onboarding process so someone can come to my solution, sign up, get a website, and start building out their website, and I don't need to be involved in that at all. So that was my goal, and so I looked for some solutions. One of the solutions I looked at was WPMU Dev kind of built their reputation around building plugins for multi-site. So they have a lot of kind of cool multi-site plugins that can help you with a multi-site environment. So that's kind of where I gravitated to it first. And they have a plugin called ProSites, which allows you to kind of sell WordPress multi-site subsites. So I tested that a little bit, and that turned out to not quite be what I was looking for, because at the time, ProSites kind of forced you into a freemium model, which means kind of like WordPress.com, where you can sign up for a free blog, but then they have upsells like plugins and themes that you can end up charging for. But I was thinking more like the Squarespace model, where you pay upfront a monthly fee for the website. And it couldn't quite do that. So I kind of ended up spinning up my own custom solution. I used the Membership Pro plugin from WPMU Dev to be able to get folks to sign up for recurring membership, and then created some custom functions to then spin up a subsite for those people who signed up for the membership, and that kind of got me started and got me going and got the whole process more or less automated.
So somebody comes along, you've presumably nurtured them in some way, shape or form. They come along to your website, there's a form, they fill out the form, they pay whatever pricing it is that you've got at the time, and when the payment has gone through, at that moment, once the payment has been authorized, presumably then a multi-site site is created on your super user site. Have I got that right?
Yeah. So the next step after they pay is that they would choose the site name and the subdomain, because in multi-site, there's two ways that multi-site can create a subsite, either with a subdomain or with a subfolder. And the subdomain is, in this situation, is the best, because then it's easier for them to map their own domain later on down the road.
Yeah.
So they choose their subdomain, they choose their site title, and then that's all WordPress needs to create a unique subsite for them. And then it takes them basically right to the dashboard of their new subsite, and it creates that subsite in as a super admin. I can see that site in my network of sites from the WordPress network dashboard, which is a slightly different dashboard than you would see from a standalone WordPress website.
Okay, so just putting all of that to one side for a moment, the creation of the site. So just from a technical standpoint, how do you manage the hosting of this? Are there any special requirements that you need? Do you use a particular host that has accommodated you for this?
Yeah. Luckily, WordPress multi-site can run basically on any hosting that can run WordPress. So there's really not any extra requirements in order to run multi-site itself. You just need the database, you need the site files, and that's it. Once you start getting it into actually selling the subsites and allowing people to map their domains, then you'll need certain things like wildcard subdomain, the ability to for your primary domain to have unlimited subsites created. So there's some technical things you need to set up for that. But I don't really worry about that. I use WP Engine, which kind of takes care of all of that on their own. So at this time, WP Engine, I think you can sign up for an account, and then you can add on a multi-site add-on, and it's like 10 or $20 extra a month. And then when you do that, they take care of setting up multi-site. So you just check a box, they set it up. You say, I need wildcard subdomains, they set that up. You just, you go in the support chat, say, hey, I need you to set this up. They set it up, and then it works. So
is it then just a question, because there's one database and there's one set of files? Do you have to pay your hosting company, in this case WP Engine, do you pay them more for each multi-site that gets created, or are you just paying for data transfer and storage upgrades now?
Right, that's the beauty part of it, right? The WP Engine does not count each subsite as a separate site. So it's just the one multi-site install counts as one site. So you can have hundreds, thousands of websites running on your multi-site, and you're only paying for one site, account, I guess you would say. So that being said, when you start having hundreds of thousands of subsites, then you're going to need to kind of bump up the account to account for the extra bandwidth and storage and stuff. But that's it.
That's really interesting. You can already see the sort of the cogs turning in terms of the money. If you're paying for the hosting's a big cost for a lot of a lot of these kind of projects, and if you're just paying the one time, and obviously you got your little upgrades to access multi-site, that's great. But keep an eye on how many uploads there are of images and all of that kind of stuff, I guess, and just monitor that and make sure it's all in line. Now you've put together
and multi-site allows you to put limits on the size of files your users can upload and the total amount of file space they're allowed to upload over time. So you can limit all of that in multi-site itself. So you can kind of prevent people from uploading a bunch of crazy stuff and taking over. Your storage.
That's good to know. And you've put together. Now I'll try and get this URL right. Let me get this right. It's turnkey-websitesblueprint.com/comparison, which then in some magical way ends you up at a Google spreadsheet. You've put together on here a nice sort of tick box, if you like. It's almost like a pricing table with we've got this and we've got this. And you're comparing three current solutions that we might use to do this. Now, we're basing this on the assumption that A, you want to build a multi-site network, B, that you don't want to write too much code, because there are three plugins listed here. Now, you've mentioned Pro Sites, which is listed on there, and you've mentioned Restrict Content Pro. They've both got a fair amount of ticks, but the new person in the game, I'd never heard of until you'd contacted me, is WP Ultimo. Do you want to tell us a little bit about their offering and what you think of it?
Yeah, so WP Ultimo is, like you said, kind of the new kid on the block. They is a recent plugin, and I wish they would have been around when I started my my turnkey network, because it's really the first plugin other than Pro Sites that is purpose built for this exact situation, where you have a multi-site network, you want to sell access to subsite creation, and you want to have different levels of access. And that's the beauty of WP Ultimo, is it's got a very slick onboarding process. So you can create a nice looking pricing table. The client clicks on one of the to purchase one of your levels, and then they're taken through like a nice wizard to get them set up on your network, and it's very seamless. And then you can have different levels. So you can have your base level. You can restrict the number of pages that they can create. You can restrict what plugins they have access to. And and so the base, account, they could only maybe create 5 pages. And then the next,
nice. Yeah.
and that account level, it could be unlimited or whatever. And then you can add plugins and stuff like that. So it's really slick. It allows them to map their domain. That's all built into that. So it's a really cool plugin. And yeah, you can just kind of see all the boxes on that spreadsheet that are checked. It's got most of those boxes checked. And,
yeah.
And the developer is very, his name is Arindo. He's an Eastern European fella, and he's very responsive to suggestions. He's constantly updating it and constantly adding new features. So it's a great little plugin.
And this would allow you with a small investment, which at the moment is a one-time investment. It's got this WP Ultimate, which I should say we're not endorsing because neither of us have got any skin in the game here, have we?
Right.
But they've got this kind of one-time pricing, which is quite nice. You can get your lifetime deal for unlimited sites.
And he has told me that is going to change.
Oh, okay.
So
yep.
if you want to get in now.
Oh, that's interesting. Right. Well, let me find I think it was $149 for unlimited everything, which is quite nice.
Yep.
So that's quite interesting what you were saying just there. You can on a site by site basis, you can say, okay, in my multi-site super user site, here's the suite of plugins that I've got, and you can then say when a new site is deployed, it's got access to, for example, Beaver Builder. It might have access to advanced custom fields or whatever it might be. You can limit and say yes, have Beaver Builder, but no, don't have advanced custom fields or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And so you can maybe have like some premium plugins that you offer to your highest tier, and people who can access those plugins have to pay a little bit more monthly. And that's a great way to do that. If folks, don't need those plugins, they can pay a little bit less and don't even get access to them. So it's a cool system.
And you can, as you said, you can upgrade and downgrade the amount of storage that they've got as well.
Yep. So you can limit or restrict their storage, the amount of pages they can create, and a couple other things, I believe.
Would you? So is this the one that you would now pick if you were thinking about doing this in this era?
Yep, I think so. It's like I said, the plugins come a long way. I think maybe 6 months ago I might not have recommended it or used it. It wasn't quite ready for prime time, but now I think it's kind of matured a little bit, fleshed out some of the issues it had, and I think it's a really good contender. And so I've been testing it and kind of putting it through the paces, and so far it seems like a solid recommendation.
Yeah, I really like it, actually, just sort of poking around. I tried to do this a few years ago. I had a niche which I thought was probably worth tapping into, and I built out this exact thing that you're describing. At the time, I used WPMU Devs plugins to do it, and I had it all working. I had literally everything working. It was a bit ugly, but it all worked. But there's a couple of reasons that I didn't launch it. Number one, because I'm lazy, and I just never quite got the marketing materials together and enough effort into the final push to launch it. And the second one was because I was terrified that if the multi-site network, this one website, which in effect hosts all the other websites, if something went wrong with that, then let's say I've got 20 sites, 50 sites, 100 sites, they're all going to go wrong at exactly the same moment. So potentially you've got 100 angry customers calling you in. Does that thing keep you awake at night? And how do you, do you do things to prevent that happening? What can we do?
Yeah, I mean that definitely is a fear that could happen, right? If because you're on the same WordPress install technically for all of these subsites, if one subsite were to crash, that would bring down your whole network basically, because it's all running off the same code more or less. Everyone's using the same plugin installation more or less. So that can happen, but it's very rare. I mean, multi-site itself is a mature platform. It's very stable. It's very secure. the subsite admins, so your customers who have these sites on your network, are restricted, have restricted permissions. So they don't have the same permissions that an administrator on a standalone WordPress website would have to, install plugins, install themes, or mess with theme code or any of that stuff. So that's good. So your users can't really take down the network at all. It would be up to you as the super admin to do that. You just got to be careful. Once the good thing is once you have your network up and running with all the plugins that you want and stuff, you're rarely gonna change it or add anything to it. It's pretty stable. So at that point, it's just a matter of, with WP Engine, it's nice because you have one click copy your live site to a staging version. So I always do that and then test any plugin updates on the staging version first, just to make sure it's not going to crash. There's not going to be a conflict or something. It's going to crash the network. So I'll do that first and do that kind of diligence, which, you should be doing with standalone sites anyways, right? That's just kind of best practice. So I'll do that and then run the updates on the live site, normally on an evening or weekend. So if something does happen, it's not going to, be a huge deal. Luckily, my customers are local businesses. They don't get a lot of traffic normally. They're not checking their sites all the time. So if something were to happen, if I just restore from backup really quick, most of my customers wouldn't even notice that there was a hiccup.
Yeah, that's a really good point, though. To be honest with you, if you think about it, just about all SaaS platforms, there's one body of code, and if that in some way gets balked, then the whole thing's going to go down anyway. But I do like the idea of testing the whole thing, any update, any minor plugin update or whatever it might be on a staging server. And I know, because I've got WP Engine sites, that you just click a button. It creates a staging environment. You test it on there, and it works. Did you ever have an issue with a plugin on the staging site which made you not install it? Have you ever had nightmare issues that prevented you from updating things?
Yes, there have been issues. Not issues where it's taken down the entire network, but issues where it's like broken some functionality on the website. There was one recently where the domain mapping plugin I used had a conflict with the Ajax functionality that's built into WordPress. So it would cause some form submissions to not work and stuff that used Ajax on the site. So basically, I just had to, keep the domain mapping plugin unupdated until they fix the issue, and then I would update it to the next version after that.
Right.
So you'll catch stuff like that. And that was one I didn't catch on the staging.
Yeah, you wouldn't catch that one, would you? Because that's
right.
Visual. Yeah.
Yep, that's something that a customer actually had to contact support and say, "Hey, my form's not working," and then it took some investigating because it wasn't immediately clear what the issue was. But I eventually narrowed it down. On staging, I would. Like you do, you disable all plugins and you enable one at a time until the issue pops back up, and then that kind of tells you what the culprit is. So did that investigation, figured it out, and then just downgraded that plugin until the patch was available.
Nice.
So stuff like that'll happen. That's what keeps it from being completely hands off, right? There's going to be issues like that crop up. But really, for the most part, this whole turnkey system is very hands off. The only thing I really do now is do the updates, the maintenance, that's, happens once a week, and then answer support tickets. I have, right now we're at about 200 users, so 200 subsites on the network.
Nice.
And I'll get maybe, around average of 5 support tickets a week. And most of it's really
that's really minimal.
Yeah, because once they get the website set up, that's it. They leave it alone and they go run their business. They don't really, they're not sitting there on the website, constantly doing stuff with it. They just need help getting it set up. Once it's set up, they'll update a page every now and then. They have the power to do that themselves, so they don't need to contact me to do that.
Yep.
And it's great. It's a great little recurring revenue business.
I'm interested to know what plugins you have access, or if I was to sign up to this service, Probably I wouldn't be interested too much in the names of the plugins if I was a customer, but being a WordPress person, I am interested. What are the plugins and features that you allow your customers to use? Because obviously that was probably a very large decision right at the beginning when you were setting it all up.
Yeah, my particular platform is very, very minimalistic. It's very simple, and I do that on purpose. One, to make it easy for me to maintain, but also, and this is something you really got to think about, is to make it as easy to use as possible for your customers. Because something that frustrates the average business owner when they're trying to put together a WordPress website is all these different options and all these different settings and what did they do and what do I need to do? They quickly become overwhelmed. So and then you add plugins into the mix, and that just kind of just frustrates people. So I wanted my platform to be super simple, super straightforward. So I think the biggest kind of plugin that I'm using that adds some functionality is Beaver Builder as the page builder.
I like that.
Yeah, and the cool thing about Beaver Builder is the agency version is really well built for multi-site. You have the white label options, so I can make it branded to look like my turnkey branding. It's got settings that you can set in the network admin, so you can enable and disable modules from for the entire multi-site network at once. No other page builder does that. So Beaver Builder is definitely the one to choose if you're going to be doing like a turnkey setup like this.
And do you sorry, there's probably more apart from Beaver Builder.
Yeah, I'm actually pulling up my dashboard now just because I don't remember off the top of my head. I'm using Gravity Forms.
Fair enough.
Gravity Forms has some cool, and it's really you can only use certain plugins in this situation, because not only does the plugin need to be multi-site compatible or capable, but it also needs to be set up in a way where you don't need to like insert license keys.
You can do that with
sites.
Gravity Forms, can't you? There's a bit you can put in the functions.php, isn't there, if I remember rightly?
Yep, exactly.
One line, and it contains the license key for the whole multi-site network.
Yeah. So it's amazing how many plugins aren't set up that way, where you would have to like individually on every individual site add a license code and set up the settings and stuff. So so that can be frustrating. So yeah, we use Gravity Forms for the form builder. And then as far as that there's not too many more customer facing plugins we're using like a social media sharing plugin and a couple other stuff, but the plugins most of the plugins we're using on the admin side, for example, like Admin Menu Editor Pro is a really nice one I like.
Okay, just to strip things away that they shouldn't be looking at.
You can strip things away, but you can also rename menus. You can give them different icons. You can create menu headings. I use it to pull out, for example, the customizer menu. I pull it out from under appearance and I make it its own top level menu item. So people don't have to go digging for it. It's just right there, customizer right above, right underneath dashboard. So stuff like that, I can hide things and add things, and that makes it really easy. It's just drag and drop.
It's I think that's a really nifty idea. I remember doing exactly this. I remember wrangling, trying to think, okay, the license thing was a problem. Where could I insert the license? And I tried in many ways to use plugins that I couldn't do that with, and I remember thinking, there's going to be lots of headaches here. I'm going to have to manually go in every time I see a new site pop up and put the license in, but hide the menu so that they can't kind of fiddle with the license or see the license, because in some cases the license was in plain text, and it was all silly things like that. But I was being a bit stupid in that I wasn't keeping it as minimal as you, and I think really that's the key, isn't it? And
really the value add for this comes from for me, I release kind of a lot of training and tutorial videos along with it, and that's key to make this work and minimize support, where someone signs up and then you guide them through the sign up and building out their site. And I use these tutorial videos, and through the videos you're speaking to them in their niche. So for my guys, they're computer repair business owners and IT services businesses. So I'm saying, here on the services page, this is where you can list services like virus removal and here's some wording you can use, and you should use a picture, you should use this type of picture, and then have a call to action at the bottom of the page. So I'm kind of training and guiding them through and speaking their language.
Yep.
And they really like that, as opposed to, these generic platforms where they seem like it's made for photographers or something or bakeries, and it's like something not even close to what they need. So they really appreciate that I'm speaking their language, and I'm giving them just the tools they need. And a lot of times I rarely get people saying, well, hey, why don't you have e-commerce, or hey, why don't you have this fancy plugin or that fancy plugin? And a lot of the extra functionality they need, they can find through third-party apps that they can sign up for, and then, inject or add, embed, I guess is the right word, code on their site, like a chat box or something like that. And so, I found I don't really need to have a lot of whiz-bang plugins on the platform itself.
Well, I mean, it is what it is, right? You sign up for something these days, and you get what you get, and you know what you're getting when you pay the money at the beginning. And the most you can do is add feature requests, and I presume that some of those will be worth looking at, and other ones wouldn't. You're kind of trying to cultivate a community of people who are doing this. Is that right?
Right. So, I built this up. I didn't really have any guidance on how to do it. I was just kind of, shooting in the dark and playing by ear. It took me almost a full year to set up what I have as my turnkey solution now. Trial and error, trying different things. And I spent the better part of a year doing it. So, once I got it built, and once it was working well, and once I got, started getting hundreds of people signing up for it, I was talking to other folks who do web development, and they're like, oh my God, that sounds awesome. I'd love to be able to do that. How do you do it? And so that kind of prompted me to think about it, look to see if there were any solutions out there. And there's really not anybody talking about how to do this. Or creating resources for folks to learn how to do this. So, hey, as entrepreneurs, we like to start stuff. So I figured I'd start something to do that. So I created turnkey-websites-blueprint.com, started, creating blog posts about how to find a niche, how to price how to think about pricing, and on there I have an ebook that you can download that kind of lays out all of the technical specifications. What do you need for hosting? What do you need for plugins? What do you need for to do with domains and all of that stuff? So you can download that. And then we have a Facebook group that you can join, Turnkey Websites Blueprint in Facebook. So that's been super active. I'm super happy about that group. People are really excited about starting their turnkey networks. And so there's lots of good questions being asked. I'm learning a lot from people in that group. So that's been a great experience. And then I just started doing kind of a premium video course. So we did our first intake a couple months ago. It's 6 modules. I take people through choosing a niche, installing multi-site, installing the plugins, getting WP Ultimo set up, and then we also get into talking about support, how to think about support, how to give support, and then how to maintain your network and how to keep it running. So it's kind of a soup to nuts set up your own turnkey network course. And so I do intakes, we're probably going to do the next round of intakes late this month or early July. So it's kind of a nice ecosystem. If you just want to do it yourself, we've got lots of great resources. If you want help, we have the course. And it's been a lot of fun building that up. And like I said, I'm learning just as much as I think all the people in there are learning as well.
I think that's a really cool thing. I mean, it never ceases to amaze me with WordPress. There's a niche here within WordPress and another niche there and another one over there. And the idea that you could, you've done this yourself. This is your business. And yet there's a sort of learning niche bolted onto it as well. How do we find out about the course?
That's one thing I have yet to do. So I don't have a landing page for it or anything yet. Okay. When I have the intake, I'll, let people in the Facebook group and people who signed up for the mailing list, I'll let them know that it's been released, and then I'll have a, landing page for it. But for now, just kind of, hop in the Facebook group or download the ebook, and then you'll be on the mailing list, and then you'll get notified when the next intake is. But in the meantime, you can just kind of soak in all of the free resources on the website and in the Facebook group.
I'll bet you there'll be a whole load of people who listen to this who've thought about doing this before. And actually, I'm just looking. I've just cracked open the group, and it's at facebook.com/groups/turnkey.websites. And already I can see quite a lot of familiar faces in there, so that's quite cool.
Yep.
So if you've got any, if this is something that interests you, you'd like to be able to automate the production of websites and charge recurring fees for them, where could we find you, Matthew, apart from in that group? Is there an email or a Twitter handle or anything else you want to suggest at this point?
I think the best place is that Facebook group. This whole turnkey websites blueprint thing is pretty new, so I haven't created the Twitter handles or the social media accounts around it. But you're welcome to do that. You're welcome to find me on Facebook or any of the social media platforms. Just search for Matthew Rodela, and you can find me. I'm happy to be to be friends with folks who are interested in this stuff.
Great.
But yeah, the turnkey website's blueprint.com. There's a contact form there if you want to reach out to me. Cool. Or the Facebook group are the best places.
Great. Well, thank you for coming on and telling us about Turnkey Websites Blueprint and about how we might at least make a start on thinking about these things. I really appreciate it. And, we hope to speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
Yeah, it's been a blast. Thanks.
And today's ending fact comes from titanmedia.com, and they've got a article called, and we love this, 51 Insane Web Design Statistics. Actually, it's 2016, but it's been updated to 2018.
Well,
and the one we're looking at...
they are insane. These website statistics, they are insane, David. You've never seen anything like it.
Well, we're looking at number 15 just because I want to vent my spleen on this. And it is once on a company's website, 52% of visitors want to see about us information. The source for that is co-marketing.
Yeah. 52%. I would imagine that's probably a lot higher, but there you go.
You just howled me with what you got me howling with what you just said earlier. Tell folks.
Oh well, yes, of course. If 52% of people want to see about us information, that it's a binary thing, isn't it? That means 48% of people do not want to see about us information. They don't want to know anything about you. Yeah. They've come to your website and they don't want to know. Don't want to see your phone number. Don't want to see your address. Get lost.
Yeah, definitely not your face.
This is so basic. I mean, you would have thought this topic would have been dealt with a long time ago. I insist, really, when we have a meeting, one of the first things is, what's your primary channel to get noticed on? And very, very often we want the phone to ring, so the phone number goes right up there. And luckily, the website that we're looking at, which is Titan Media, luckily for them, they do have an About Us link right at the very front of their main navigation. So they are practicing what they preach.
Yeah, but so much, and particularly in WordPress plugin area, gosh, you cannot find an About page.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, yeah. I wonder why not? Why would people not want to be... I mean, clearly there's going to be use cases where you don't want to be discovered, probably. But as a business... you've got to push that stuff down people's throats, haven't you? I would have thought, phone numbers, addresses, about, testimonials, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a sort of international thing going on in the WordPress plugin market, because I think, everybody likes to assume that everybody's English in the US.
Yeah.
So if you put yourself as being somewhere else, it might sort of, because the whole marketing is very much in that kind of style, isn't it? The language and everything. So maybe that's part of why people feel like they just might sort of ruin an illusion with the rest of their site. But I don't know. Yeah, it just drives me crazy. Well, first thing I want to know.
Yeah, exactly. So, go with the herd. 52%, that's more than half, wants to see. So if you're designing somebody's website, you are doing the 52% a disservice if you aren't putting that information right at the top. Okay, we're done with our vent of spleen. We will say goodbye First of all, though, thanks for listening all the way to this point. Very, very much appreciated. If you wouldn't mind going over to wpbuilds.com/subscribe and join us on YouTube, Slack, Facebook, everything, the whole lot. And also, if you go to wpbuilds.com/deals, you can find some good deals on things like Toolset and Malcare and Blog Vault and all sorts of other stuff. So yeah, go there. And we will see you on next week's episode. My name's Nathan Wrigley.
And I'm David Walmsley. And check out our About Us information, which is completely fake.
Oh, yes. We haven't got a page, have we? We've just got a link. We're at the bottom of the homepage. I quite like our About Us information. I'm quite proud of it. It's suitably self-mocking. Right, we're off. See you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.